Brother Rodney is here
Yes.
from the Nation of Islam. Brother Rodney, why don't we pick up the threads where we left off? So please continue.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
When we look at the Native Americans, I want to come to Israel, but when we look at the Native Americans, the white man came with the Bible.
Yep.
The Native Americans had the land. And when the dust settled and everything was over, the white man had the land, and the Native Americans had the Bible. So they came with religion to destroy a whole race of people. It was called genocide. Now, the Jews are supposed to establish the kingdom of God on the coming of the Messiah.
Right.
In 1947, the Messiah did not arrive yet.
Right.
So who jumped the gun? And they came with the Bible and with the Torah, and they said, this is our land. Then they kicked the Palestinians out.
Well,
And this is, but hold up, this is why it's a hotbed in the Middle East right here today. Who has all the weapons? How is it that America is going to have a relationship with Israel, the so-called Israel, that was not established by the Messiah? Have a relationship with Israel, and how can you have a relationship with your wife, Chuck, and never have a disagreement?
Right.
What kind of hypocritical relationship is that? America gives Israel billions of dollars every year from the taxpayers' money. And she uses the weapons to kill Palestinians when they're throwing stones. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. But we don't want to spend no time on Israel. You invited me to talk about Islam, and the effect of Islam should be talked about with black people in America and the effect that it has on those who are in prison and in this community. Our people are not overseas.
Nope.
They're concerned
That's right.
with the racism in America, the rabid racism, the Ku Klux Klan, the skinheads, the Nazi groups who are well armed. And black people don't have gun clubs, so we don't know how to shoot straight. And we don't make the guns nor the bullets, so don't have hospitals to heal ourselves. And all the time, we are experimenting with our black bodies by other people with degrees.
Yep.
So what about the black man in America?
Okay.
He has been a victim for 430 years. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it, but I just briefly have to address Israel because you brought this up.
But we don't want to make this whole topic on Israel.
Absolutely not, and I agree. But we've gotten to it, so let me do it, and then we'll move on to talk about.
I think
the
you did it for a
injustice.
long time, but you can continue. It's not my show, it's yours.
The sequence is that the children of Israel are to take possession of the land, and then the Messiah comes. It's not that the Messiah does something to create the state of Israel. The state of Israel has to be created by people. I mean, that's why Joshua crossed the Jericho and the Jordan and took the city of Jericho. Now, as far as, and that I think that the entire world, and by the way, I would quote the Quran that recognizes Israel as the people of the book.
Not that Israel.
Well, they recognize the people of the book, which
Palestinians are Semitic people. What does Jew mean to you? Is it a color?
It is a covenant between the people.
Is it a color? A covenant,
no,
yes.
It's not
but
a color.
Is it a color?
No, it is.
Okay, so those. So the Ethiopians in Palestine, they catch hell just like black people in America. They have their ghetto, we have our ghetto here.
Well, first of all, Israel is as imperfect and as un-utopian
Of course
as it
it's
is.
imperfect. And anyone who criticizes Israel, they're called an anti-Semitic.
Well, first of all,
every black leader, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, every black leader in America, male and female, if they disagree with the state of Israel or any Jewish position in America, then they're called an anti-Semitic. What kind of relationship is that?
Well,
Chuck?
let me tell you. I mean, first of all, it's one thing to disagree with Israel. I've disagreed with Israel's policies publicly. I disagree.
No one's perfect.
I disagreed with them for withdrawing from the Gaza. Look what a disaster that was. However, there's a difference between disagreeing with Israeli policy and disagreeing with Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. Now,
Every human being should have the right to exist. We're in agreement with that.
We are in agreement with it.
And righteousness.
But every sovereign nation has a right to determine its own life and future, and that the people of that sovereign nation have a right to set up nations.
And that includes the Palestinians.
Well, this is what I'd say to that. I agree with the argument that they make a very good argument for the creation of another Arab state, even though there's 23 oil-rich and vast Arab states already that are sovereign. However, since there's a conflict between the Jewish and the non-Jewish residents there, I would respectfully argue that the Jewish residents make a better argument, in the same way that Ulysses S. Grant pointed out that the South, which seceded from the Union, had to have slavery, that they passionately believed in what they believed in, that they made a good argument for their separateness, but that their argument ultimately was not good enough. It was not as good as the argument of the Union.
Yeah, Chuck, but I think we can move on. This is not a Jewish program, is it?
You're
in the black community. Let's talk about issues concerning my people in this community.
All right. Look, I think that the answer to this great stain on American life and culture, which is the treatment of black people in this country, which I agree with you on, the answer to that is capitalism, is business, is helping people. I think that the black community, for example, right up until the 1960s, was emerging. The family was intact, the faith was intact, and this was in spite of terrible racism, Jim Crow, horrible segregation. And I think that in spite of that thing, they were moving ahead, they were becoming successful, they were developing an infrastructure, they were developing businesses, and I think a lot of that was done undone, quite frankly, by liberal policies.
But Chuck, you can say liberal, you can say, whatever you want to say, but let me just say this.
Yep.
I like to simplify it. It's white supremacy. White supremacy is.
I mean, it's.
Oh, okay. So let's forget about all those labels.
But the point
because
is that
some other people might not understand all that, and it will create confusion. It's white supremacy, which is in the mainstream of every religion.
Well,
every religion, including Judaism.
It's not in the mainstream of the black church.
It's in every religion.
Everywhere, honestly. Okay. I mean,
in most of the black. Hold up. Yep. Since you brought that up, in most of the black churches, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Most of the black churches in the 1960s, and we go even further back, when you look in the Bible, King James Version, the most widely read Bible in the world.
Of course.
You don't find no black folks in that Bible as illustrated images.
I agree.
Moses white, Jesus white, Abraham white, Lot white. We can go down the list. You mean God did not have time to raise up a prophet from among my people? That's racism rooted in religion. We call it white supremacy. Forget all these labels. Let's go to the root of it. It's white folks who have a God complex and they want to run the whole world. And anyone who rises up against them, they want to destroy them, snuff out their life. America is the biggest hypocrite on the planet.
Well, this is one of the things I admire about the Nation of Islam.
We don't bite our tongue.
Which is that it's genuinely a black faith, which is
no, it's not.
You can't categorize.
Maybe not.
Yeah, you can't say it's a black religion thing. Because the thing is just that, like,
why don't you ask me?
No. Oh, ask him.
All right.
Okay. Islam. Let me just say this to you.
Yep.
If a person enters the hospital, the emergency room, and they have a common cold, and the other person has a fractured skull, and you, the doctor, who would you attend to first?
The fractured skull.
Okay. Because that's the one closer to the valley of death. Is that not correct?
Of course, of course.
So the one who has a common cold, we'll have him in the emergency room. We'll give him a little area, and he can wait, or she can wait. So what I'm suggesting is that black people in America, we have a fractured skull, and people like to put a Band-Aid on it. Mm-hmm. So the Nation of Islam is medicine. It's not a religion. It's a way of life. So Islam, it's religion that you might call it, but a way of life in the Word of God. And God's Word is in every religion. The medicine is taken out, prescribed for this particular patient that has a fractured skull. We are in the worst condition, black people in America, economically, morally, spiritually, politically, we're like dust. You turn the fan on, people blow us any old kind of way. We vote for everybody, not even knowing that the people that we have been voting for is nothing but a bed of lies. And so you take the one who's in the worst condition and you give him the medicine so you can heal his wounds. No one in America has a better track record than the Nation of Islam reforming brothers and sisters in the prison, having them to come back into society and become assets, no longer liabilities. But who made them liabilities? No good damnable America in this government.
I don't disagree.
Better known
with
as white supremacy.
Look, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I'm not. You can't deny the fact. I certainly don't that there's a white supremacy here. We're talking about.
This is why we're boycotting Santa Claus.
Okay, but that's another topic.
Oh,
but
that's a good topic.
We're talking about.
Since
all
we're
right,
in
we'll
the
get into
season
it. But
to be joyful.
we're talking about how to lift black people out of that and how to lift the country out of it, because it's the great stain on this society, always has been. And my comment, and I don't deny that that's there,
yes,
is the empowerment that black people were obtaining through the development of capital and business and faith. And that these things, I think, have been undermined by the liberal establishment, starting with the so-called war on poverty. And
like Wall Street.
And yeah, I mean, right? I mean,
we had all black towns.
And you had all these black hotels everywhere, black businesses, black.
And as soon as integration came into the picture, we abandoned all of that because we always thought that the white man's ice melts quicker than the black man's ice, and they're both on the same corner and it's 90 degrees.
It's because
that's a slave master relationship.
It's because of the liberal introduction of things like welfare.
It's because of white supremacy.
Well, that's there anyways, and I agree with you. But the point is that I would argue, and maybe we're getting into a sequence here, that black people were emerging out of that when you had a movement that I think slowed it down by creating dependency, by creating welfare, by destroying the black family.
There were more white women on welfare.
Yeah, I was about to say more white people
on welfare. There were more white women on welfare than black people. But the media, here we go with the mass media, they make
there were more white
larger
people on
community.
Welfare.
Yes,
there were more white people in this country. But if you take a look,
you prove my point.
But if you take a look at the ratio of numbers of black people versus on welfare to the whole number of black people, as there were more, as opposed to the whole number of white people, which is about 100% more numbers.
Is it not true
I think the black community was targeted
when the
by
larger
this.
community think of welfare, they think about black people on welfare?
Because it's become a problem. It's destroying the black family.
Right.
But white people are on welfare too, though.
It's destroying all families.
Well, I agree with you, but I think it's particularly targeting the black community.
It's targeting all poor families.
It is, but I think it's
affected. We catch the brunt of it more than anyone else.
And I'm not saying this to criticize black people.
I'm saying
that.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. Can we take a break?
It's white people that have created this whole thing.
We're going to pick this phone call up.
Hello, you're on the air. Thank you.
Yes, very quickly, for Chuck Morse, I urge you, if you can, pick up the latest copy of the Banner, the Boston Banner newspaper, the one that came out on Thursday, December the 3rd, and I think it will address a lot of the concerns that you raise and will answer and give you some information that I think will be helpful to you. In good faith, I just mentioned this to you. Pick up the latest copy of the Banner newspaper.
Anything in particular I'd see there?
Yes, you would. It'll really answer in terms of just basic facts, not opinions. We should all have our own opinions, but in factual information about the whole concept and the solid evidence about white skin privilege and how that affects in negative ways the quality of life for humanity, and how it actually affects you in terms of just the environment that you're in terms of every single person alive today is related. We all came from the motherland, and also when you talk about a liberal arts education, that originated in the motherland, also known by that Greek word Africa. And some Greek historians like Herodotus acknowledge that idea of a liberal arts education and learning, that didn't originate in ancient Greece. No. All of us have the same DNA, the same birth mother in the motherland, and also Timbuktu was a center of learning, of knowledge. People came throughout the world, but sadly, today, every brother ain't a brother and every sister ain't a sister because of the way we treat each other. But all knowledge can be used to help or to hurt. And so I just mentioned to you, no justice, no peace, or no justice, no peace. And in that spirit, I urge you to pick up the latest copy, not only of the Final Call newspaper, which is a great resource, the Final Call newspaper, but in particular to address some of the concerns that you're raising right now on this program dated December the 3rd. Pick up the copy of the Banner newspaper, which comes out every Thursday, the latest one that came out on December the 3rd. I urge everyone who can hear the sound of this voice, please do that.
Thank you.
And peace and blessings.
Thanks.
Chuck, I just want to, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
And Lexi, I would like to address the image of Jesus right quick. And for the listeners, they can go to justiceorelse.com to learn more about the protests because of the racial profiling of Sandy Bland and Eric Gardner and others, and Trayvon Martin, I mean, and even the ones that we don't know of, because this has been the order of the day in America. Jesus. The Bible says in Revelations that he had hair like lamb's wool. His skin was tan. His feet were like burnt brass in the oven. So it describes his image. Now, if Jesus was a white man, black people never had a problem with that because the image of Jesus in America has always been like that, but in other countries it's not true. Even the Pope in his private chamber, the image is different. It's a black Mary and the child Jesus.
Jesus obviously was not white.
Yes, but see, you can't tell the masses of our people in this country that because they still worship a different image of Jesus. Now, what does that do to the psyche of the little black baby in the ghetto? If he knew that the Messiah, who the whole world is waiting for to return, is a black man and his mother was black, because his mother was an Egyptian, and Egypt means the land of the black. And she took, when she was pregnant, because the Roman authorities wanted to kill not only Mary, but the baby to stop the rise of the Messiah, according to the Bible.
I never heard that the mother was Egyptian. I thought she was also Jewish.
There's a lot of things you haven't heard.
Okay.
Okay.
No, that's fine. But I mean, and look, they were darker. I don't know. I mean, this whole question is almost, you know, I mean,
it's a good answer, and the question is good, but the answer is even better. So we look at, this is why we have this boycott. It's because Jesus should be up and Santa should be buried. Because our children, first of all, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that's a lie because reindeers don't fly. Santa Claus is fictitious. It's a big, fat, Chester molester white man coming out our no chimneys. So I agree. So hold up. So the children made up by white folks.
It was.
So the children, when they wake up, you mean to tell me Santa knows if they were good or bad? And if they were bad, what they do? They put black coal in the sock? That's racist. If they were good, you mean Santa Claus, some white man, knows better, more about my black child than anyone else. And so we max our Visa card, master charge. And it takes all year long to get out of debt. And we give the credit to a European from the North Pole. And, you know, he must have B&E in my house.
Well, hey.
First of all, he ain't going to get in there. Well, if he comes down that chimney, by the time he gets down to the bottom, he'll be a black man. We'll roast his behind. Because, you know, black folks love heat. Right. So my point is, racism is a mental illness. Racism, which I'm quite sure you would agree is a sickness. It not only poisons the mind of black people, it poisons the mind of white babies and white people throughout the planet. So this madness has to stop so the world will be a little more balanced.
Well, I mean, I just want to say this just so Brother Rodney's aware. In my household, we celebrate Christmas because I am a Christmas baby. Yep, Christmas Eve.
Yes, ma'am.
But
his birthday is Christmas Eve.
My birthday, you know, boycott Christmas, not my birthday. But the point that I'm trying to make is in my household, Santa Claus was not allowed.
Yes, ma'am.
Tooth Fairy was not allowed. The Easter Bunny was not
Nor
allowed.
in my household.
My mom did not allow that at all.
Because your mother knows rabbits don't lay eggs.
I mean, hey, my mom knows
That's another
everything.
lie, right?
I mean, you know, you about to see, why are you trying to take it to Easter now? We about Christmas.
Yes, ma'am.
But no, the thing is just that I totally agree with you 100%. I think that Santa Claus should not be in existence. I understand he was created by, who you say?
Washington Irving. He was
A
an
white
American
man.
writer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a very American.
I had to get on it. I had to get on it because
Yeah.
Brother Rodney. But the thing
Although I
is,
think St. Nicholas was historically a figure in.
Saint Nick was another name for Santa, and that's the name of the devil.
I thought that St. Nicholas was someone who lived in Christian,
He
what now
was-
is Turkey, and he used to put gifts on people's windshields.
Ask your grandma and your
because they were
granddad,
poor
and
and
they
he
would
didn't
tell you that's another name for the devil.
Okay.
That's the homework assignment.
You know
for
something? I'm not disputing that one.
I didn't say you were.
Because I see satanic messages in a lot of places.
Absolutely.
And I agree. You and I are in agreement on that.
Yes, sir.
But I still think there was a historic St. Nicholas who was sainted by the early Christian church because he would leave gifts for the poor and do it anonymously. He was a very wealthy
But you
man.
know what, Chuck? We don't need to create, I'm not saying you, we don't need to create a lie to get people to believe in God. That's my point.
I agree with that too.
very true.
Yep.
We don't need a black lie, and we don't need a white lie. We don't need no lies. God is so powerful.
But I don't think anybody believes in the story of like Santa
Children do.
Claus.
And then they
Children
grow up.
do, yeah, and then
Children
they
do. And then they
teach
grow up.
children.
And see, and the parents say, you know, don't you ever lie. And they'll beat their child for lying. But they lied and told their child that some Santa Claus came down the no chimney and warmed his feet and with some cookies and some milk for him. And he went to all the houses at the same time. I mean, and Chuck, back in the days in the South, they had no snow. So how did he get around with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
Yeah, it does seem a little far-fetched.
We don't need trick or treat. We don't need Freddy Krueger and all those fellows who don't look black. We don't need none of those European holidays to get people to believe in God. And we don't need bingo. There should be no gambling in the church.
Wait a minute now. You're going
wait,
too
no.
far, Brother Rodney.
Now you've-
I like bingo now. I got to go to bingo now.
I know you probably like it,
you
but,
know you
but
playing
the
games.
Bible condemns it, though. You know.
I mean, hey,
no
we
gambling.
playing for cookies, not money.
I know, but life is a sure thing. Life
You're
is a
right.
sure
You're
thing.
right. But I love. Can we not take away bingo right now?
Right. It's falling.
We're going to celebrate your birthday.
I think
Because you have been a blessing.
Thank you.
So
I mean, I was kind of
not only to be
jumping around
in,
the
but also
conversation.
to your family and the spirit that you have
Thank
to
you.
others. You know, so
I mean, I felt a little, you know, this whole show, I was like, whoa, okay, well, you got this, Chuck. You didn't need me this episode. Next time when you have a fun episode where we can laugh more, call me, okay?
But these are serious topics.
These are serious topics.
and this is fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
it's good.
It's fine.
Thank you.
You know, because as a host, you have to be somewhat controversial. To
Well, I
pull-
believe in what
to-
I'm saying. I'm
Yeah,
not
and
doing
that's
it for
fine.
the sake
That's
of
fine.
controversy.
Belief is one thing. I can believe I can cross the street, but if I cross it, I'm beyond belief. I know.
Yep.
Well, on and
So I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
well, both of you guys are very wise. And on that note,
Thank you.
we got to close out Chuck's show.
Thank you very
want to
much.
do the closing for me, Chuck?
Thank you for inviting me too.
My pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brother
Thank you.
Rodney.
Yes.
You're so great. You too.
Likewise.
Thanks, Chuck.
okay. So that wraps things up for today.
It does wrap things up for today. Thank you so much for watching the Chuck Morse Show. Oh, you do that. That's your
And I think my
job.
next program, I'm having the Israeli Consul General on, so then we'll talk about
Oh, I definitely ain't coming on that show.
That's another show.
Definitely not coming on that show.
Oh,
No, I don't know.
There's been a lot of misconceptions about Israel, especially in the black community.
I mean, I just think there's
So I
just a
think
lot of
we
misconceptions.
could clear it up with someone who actually has some authority on the topic, and that is the ambassador to Boston.
But I like to say this: all life is precious.
Yes.
Not only Jewish life,
Oh.
but Palestinian life too.
Of course.
Yes.
All lives matter. Black lives
That's
matter
why
right
Israel
now.
respects.
No, they don't.
Okay, guys,
That's
we're doing the
another topic.
credit.